Esoteric Encyclopedia of Eternal Knowledge by Vernon Howard, beginning with R. Reactions. Everyone hearing pure truth has a dominating reaction which is opposed by a smaller attitude. He may be puzzled but interested in hearing more, hopeful but blocked by feelings of guilt, hostile but sensing the rightness of the message, attracted but anxious over leaving habitual ways, disdainful but curious over the freshness of truth, receptive but worried by what others may think, attentive but having little sincerity, nervous but willing to endure more lessons, encouraged but too confused to persist, inspired but doubtful over the next step. A person's reaction is determined by his level of cosmic maturity. Those ready for higher levels will place their whole being on the side of positive attitudes. Two good attitudes are an interest in hearing more and a willingness to endure the nervousness felt when truth challenges fanciful imagination. Real inspiration. A class in Chicago requested, "Please give us something to think about. Your own nature is the only reward or punishment you receive on earth. What you are is how you feel. There is no division between the kind of person you are and the feelings you have. You yourself are your very feelings. Connect this with another point. When suffering, you suffer only from yourself, regardless of how you think it is caused by external happenings." Someone commented, "We sense the truth of that, but it still makes us uncomfortable. As uncomfortable as it may feel, nothing is more inspiring than a blunt fact about oneself. As pleasant as it may sound, nothing is more discouraging than a falsehood about oneself masquerading as fact. With all this in mind, when can we expect real inspiration? When there is no difference between the way you appear and the way you are." Realness. Mr. and Mrs. R told the class they had been discussing an interesting topic at home. "What does it mean to be a real person?" said Mr. R. "That is what we wanted to know." "We've picked up good clues here in class," added Mrs. R, "but could we search it out some more?" Being a real person must be studied from a special viewpoint. Have you ever noticed how you are one person in a certain situation and quite another elsewhere? You may behave in a certain manner towards someone you want to impress, but act quite differently with a family member. A man contains dozens of conflicting personalities, each leaping on stage for a moment, only to be replaced by the next clever actor. Realization of his multiple personality is a man's first step towards realness and unification. As self-knowledge banishes this noisy mob, it makes room for the real. Receive liberty. Imagine yourself standing outside a fire station when sirens scream and firemen clamber on their engines. As a fireman dashes by you, ask, "Where are you going?" Responds the fireman, "To a fire that happened 10 years ago." You think you must be dreaming. Something is wrong. Firemen do not race to fires that happened 10 years ago. Yet we behave just as strangely when responding with wild emotions to events of 10 or 50 years ago. We must cut the cord of time which binds us to the past. We must cut ourselves away from unconscious responses arising from past defeats and sorrows. Right now, receive your liberty. Recognition of authentic help. The only man who really believes in you is the man who believes in himself. His belief is not the lazy and gullible kind arising from self-deception and superstition. It is the kind founded on knowledge acquired through right inner adventuring. The foundation is made of facts, not fantasies. A person living in dreamland cannot possibly believe in your opportunity for self-newness. How can he? Newness does not exist to him. It does exist to certain rare individuals. Historically, Christ, Buddha, Lao Tzu were among those who lived what they taught. Having found the treasure for themselves, they knew it was universal and limitless. That is why they gave freely. How much you recognize such a rare individual today? How much you recognize a man who really believes in you? A certain amount of personal action is necessary. This action must attract to you a certain amount of the uniqueness possessed fully by the enlightened teacher. Climb a mile or two up the side of a mountain. See that man on top of the mountain? Your own climbing brought him into sight. Reflect new life. An archaeologist in Egypt once uncovered a statue which had been hidden for centuries in the desert sands. At first glance, the statue appeared dull and commonplace, but when placed in a position to receive sun rays, it was as if it had come to life. No matter how long we have been out of sight of ourselves, we can reflect new life. Feeling lost is nothing more than a gigantic misunderstanding which you can toss out. Feeling dull is simply the result of wrong learning, which you can unlearn. Most people are motivated by what they want from the world of people and events. Futility wins. Let yourself be motivated by what you want from the invisible world. You win. Reject self-condemnation. Self-condemnation and self-dislike are wrong moves. They are two bars in the prison cell. If you did not condemn yourself, you would be free of all condemnation, for no other person possesses the right or the power to condemn you. If another person blames you, that is a wrong move on his part. By condemning you, he feels self-approval by comparison, which is vanity. But a refusal of self-blame is no excuse for seeing how much we must do with and for ourselves. A marathon runner does not impose moral judgment upon the defects in his stride, nor does he ignore them. He examines his stride, but with one purpose in mind, to run smoother and faster. When this was discussed in a class in Tennessee, someone asked, "Please review why self-condemnation is a wrong move." It is wrong because it keeps alive the illusion that one possesses a separate self, a labelled identity. Each time you condemn yourself, you reinforce this false belief, which perpetuates the suffering it causes. Relaxed power. When you are completely powerless and understand what this means from the esoteric viewpoint, you have an entirely new kind of power. Unlike power and authority on the social level, this power is relaxed, for it has no oppositions and no enemies who must be watched. This is the peaceful power of the single-minded man. If this esoteric viewpoint is not clear to you, have patience. When watering your garden, you may not understand the process by which the underground water works on the roots. However, you can clearly see the results in blooming flowers and tasty fruits. In the same manner, our right internal gardening will produce new life with no concern nor bewilderment on our part. Reliable principles. Cosmic principles are supremely honest and reliable. They deliver an abundance of whatever has been promised. Wish to rise above your present self? You will be shown how. Want to know how to brighten what happens to you? Instructions will be complete. Your part? Just come with something right, perhaps a steadfast wish for help, or even with a weariness with the old ways. The following paragraph shows how it goes. A man with something right in him reads an esoteric book to gain knowledge. This he wins, but also experiences discomfort. Disturbance is present because his rightness urges him to vigorously toss out those parts which are comfortable and familiar, but wrong. He is like a prisoner of war who has escaped the enemy camp but has a lingering yearning for its strange security. Though challenged by unfamiliar surroundings, such a psychological prisoner is in an excellent position. A willingness to endure unknown territory gradually turns into a compass. Additional reading will show him how to avoid enemy soldiers and reach the border of a friendly nation. Relieving insight. From the viewpoint of reality, there are no answers to questions such as, should I get married? And how can I become an important person? The awakened man sees the very questions as false, for they are taken from the immense bag of illusions carried by mankind. Both questions wrongly assume that a change in exterior conditions can bring happiness to the inner person. Both sacrifice contentment in the here and now to some supposed satisfaction in the vague and distant future. If people could only see that the true answer to such questions resides in the very disappearance of the question, great relief accompanies this insight. Remember, our problem is forgetfulness of who we really are, of where we can go, of how we can change, of what we can attain. The solution is to remember. Remember what? That whatever is truly valuable can never be threatened or destroyed by exterior events. That the kind of nature you have is the only reward and the only punishment you have. That freedom does not consist of behaving as we wish, but in behaviour which includes no self-harming wishes. That no one needs to fight to keep his world together, for that is simply achieved by being one with the world. That the only motive you need for walking the esoteric path is because it is the right thing to do, right for you. Remembered words. A remembered word can serve as a psychological sheepdog to prevent us from wandering on to rocky ground. Let each of these words turn you back towards green meadows. Examine, simplify, try, relax, aim, ponder, practice, advance. Take the word ponder. Ponder this fact. There is an inward place having nothing to do with unhappiness. You can learn to live from this peaceful place. Ponder that fact until living it. Rescue from blunders. We will never understand why human events happen as they do by looking into history or science. We can understand them only by looking into human nature. How easily we overlook the plain fact that events unfold according to human desires and motives. But, of course, self-investigation is the last thing that ego-defending men want to go into. You cannot get through to a self-deceived man because one of his strongest illusions is that he is not self-deceived. Remember, fact can be separated from fantasy only by the person who chooses fact over fantasy. Facts can save anyone from anything, and you can get the facts just as fast as you want them. Maybe you worry about making blunders, as did one inquirer. What helpful facts were needed by this worrier? He was told, "You must have no fear of blunders, but must study them with a scientific state of mind. And remember, A scientific study of mistakes does not include self-defense. You cannot even correct a mistake in spelling if you defend your error. Be teachable about blunders. That ends them. Resistance. You have made me aware of my resistance to the rescuing facts, said Paul. I see how I used to refuse to listen to anything outside of my cramped mind. As you described it, I was living in the closet of a 60-room mansion. May we have some comments on the problem of resistance? How on earth can we learn by being told things we think we already understand? We learn only by being told what we don't comprehend. That is plain logic. But how many people are logical? Very few. Fear of the unknown. There is the barrier. But since the known has delivered nothing but grief, the solution must be in exploring the unknown. More logic. Dare to see what you fear to see. Every liberated person has done this. But I don't know what to do next. Don't resist that state. Responsibility. Be fully responsible for what happens to you, and your life will flow in a new and attractive direction. Know that self-responsibility is not a burden, as shallow thinkers imagine, but an opportunity for freedom. Responsibility does not exist in the man who must be surrounded by those who agree with his opinions. Take personal responsibility for the way you feel, and you will soon begin to feel different. Authentic responsibility develops according to the number of esoteric tasks we set for ourselves. Abandonment of individual responsibility has a treacherous pleasure which deceives and punishes millions of people. Awareness of lack of responsibility may be surprising at first, but it opens the door to lasting treasures. Make yourself responsible for the way you are treated by other people, and there will be a change in treatment. The truly responsible man or woman is one who seeks and finds the cosmic kingdom within. Return to fundamentals. Whenever you do not know what to do about a bothersome condition, return to the fundamentals. Somewhere among them, you will find the right key. Perhaps you need reminding that the battle is not against people and events, but against personal psychic hypnosis. Maybe you need to remember that it is good, not bad, to see how little you know, for that invites rescuing knowledge. There is special value in returning for a second look at a principle we think we already understand. This is what Martha did with good results. She told the class, "I believed I knew the cause and cure for mental pains, but a recent experience told me otherwise. So I will return to a basic question. How can I escape mental anguish?" Mental anguish always connects in some way with lack of oneness. To say it differently, anguish occurs because we falsely think we have an ego which is apart from events, and so we falsely think we must fight events which seem to oppose the ego. When there is no false self to fight an event, anguish cannot exist. Review the facts. I am like someone who has been reading a mystery novel for several months, but can't get to the last chapter. I mean, I can't solve the mystery of why so many unpleasant things happen to me. I'm seeking a solution to my confusion. Confusion may be a fact of your experience, but it is not a necessity of your life. Review the fundamental facts you have absorbed. For example, remember to let events fall on your willingness to understand, not on your resistance to truth. Also remember that solutions come to a quiet mind. Learn your psychic lessons one at a time. How can I repel hostile attitudes from others? The need to repel means they have reached and hurt you. When you no longer have anything in you which corresponds with their hostility, you are unreachable. You can learn a great secret. It is the secret of disappearing psychologically. In other words, there is no one there to get hurt. Right attitudes. Several new students attended their first class in esoteric wisdom. Their teacher told them, "Please remember the importance of having right attitudes towards the lessons you're about to receive." Nodding to a group of advanced students, the teacher requested, "Please supply some of these right attitudes." One man responded, "Give the truth a warm welcome, remembering that its only aim is to cure whatever is wrong." A woman stated, "Never reject an idea just because it is new and unfamiliar to you." A third student added, "Realize that authentic self-change can occur only with a courageous willingness to change." Right effort. Richard raised his hand to admit, "I'm confused about effort. At one time we're told to make enthusiastic effort towards self-change, but at other times we're instructed to live casually and effortlessly. It depends upon your motive. What do you want from your effort? You can make effort to prove yourself right, or you can make effort to be right. The kind of world you inhabit depends upon your choice." "What," asked Carol, "is an example of false proving?" In an attempt to prove the possession of a dynamic personality, some people use the smallest incident as an excuse for an emotional outburst. They have wrong motives, make wrong efforts, get wrong results. Richard resumed, "How can we stay on course?" Maintain right effort by serving your real nature, not that nervous imposter who runs around in your name. Right loyalty. A battle in a war was described as a battle of wretched blunders. Both sides in the battle committed foolish and costly mistakes. Likewise, wretched and blundering man battles through his days, never questioning whether the battle need be fought at all. Have you ever calmly questioned your ways? If not, the very questioning can be the start of a new way. Do not think you are being disloyal to anyone or anything by asking questions about your life here on earth. You owe no loyalty to sources of disorder. Do not listen to anyone who tries to chain you to confusion. Listen to your own original mind. Be loyal to your real nature. That is the same as being loyal to God, to reality. Right motives. There was once a vast desert where water was scarce. However, one energetic traveller discovered a new oasis having an abundance of pure water. He remained there as keeper of the oasis. Having a penetrating mind, the keeper saw instantly the motives of travellers who requested water. The deceit and hypocrisy of human beings was clear to him. One man said he wished water for his family, but the keeper knew he wanted to sell it at a profit. Another traveller pleaded for water for his horses, but the keeper knew he would keep it all for himself. The keeper reflected, "They have their own impure water for travelling the desert and hope that trickery will obtain the pure." So only the travellers with right motives received pure water. You, the reader, know the lesson. Rightness and peace. "At any precise moment," stated Wesley, "I have a dozen small wars raging inside me. The fury may not show on my face because I'm an experienced actor on the social stage. My question is, how can I end the battle?" Please listen carefully to this answer. Do not take it as a moral teaching or as religious sentiment. Take it as a solid fact. Will you do that? Wesley nodded. Rightness is total power. Nothing can harm the person living in rightness. I'm not talking about human viewpoints towards rightness. I'm talking about rightness itself. Have cosmic rightness and the battle ends. Right order. Set your life in its right order. Lay a solid foundation and build upward. Here are several right orders to live by. Cooperate first with your own nature, for that creates uncompromising cooperation with other people. Ask spiritual questions with intense integrity, and inspiring answers will surely arrive. Teach yourself, after which you can teach those who want to know what you have learned. Understand the kind of mind you operate from, which will show you why you do what you do. Wish to learn all about your viewpoints instead of wishing to defend your present viewpoints. Be conscious of what you are about to say, then speak, for that will produce correct speech. Live rightly with yourself, after which you will live rightly with every circumstance that comes along. Roles and realities. Most of us play roles of one kind or another, stated Bert. Please discuss the harm it does. One way to block happiness is to pretend to already be happy. The role player becomes the prisoner of his role. It will always be unconscious play acting, so we must first suspect that it is a role and not a reality. An earnest person can easily do this. He can honestly ask whether he is really happy or merely playing the public role of a happy person. It is not difficult to see through the play acting of others. You don't need complicated psychological tests to determine what a man is really like. Just watch his face when he is either flattered or insulted. You will see a slave to external influences, which is one unhappy result of role-playing. S. Secret code. A secret agent was sent to a warlike country to collect information. His task was to determine the strength and the intentions of the enemy country. A simple but effective method was used to send information back to his superior officers. In seemingly innocent letters to his own country, he casually included pairs of numbers, such as 5 and 12 and 36 and 8. The received letters were quickly decoded. How? The secret agent possessed a copy of a book which had sold millions of copies around the world. He used it to send his messages back home. For example, the numbers 5 and 12 indicated page 5, 12th word, while 36 and 8 meant page 36, 8th word. Anyone knowing the secret code could read the messages. Esoteric information is available to all. However, individual effort must be made to learn its secret code. Fortunately, the code is located where every man can find it, within his own nature. Secret motives. Remarked Marie in class, I find it difficult to understand human nature and human relations. Sometimes I get hurt. Think of something you do understand and understand clearly. Take the time you try to tell your child something for his own benefit, such as advising him to study his school lessons. You can see by his face that he does not hear you at all. His mind is 3 blocks away, climbing a tree. This clearness will expand to other areas as you continue to work internally. Among other rewards, you will see straight into the secret motives of scheming people, which protects you from them. It is curious you brought that up, said Marie. More and more I realise the need to see people as they are, not as gullibility makes them appear to be. See something. Be true to yourself, not to ideas you have about yourself. Have you ever noticed the number of self-descriptions maintained within? Take a quiet and thoughtful look. See the difference between your natural self and your described self. The presence of a described self is easily detected. Any feelings of worry or pressure, any painful compulsion to prove oneself, indicates that a memorized version of oneself is operating destructively. You need not memorize who you are. That is futile and exhausting. It is like an effort to keep clothes on a scarecrow in a strong wind. It keeps you running frantically into the field to keep things looking right. Forget who you are. Forget who you assume you must become. You do not have to become someone. You already are, but that someone has no description and needs none. Forget what you call yourself. Try it. See what happens. Nothing harmful can happen. You will see something, but you must do it. Self-contradictions. Fred always came early and occupied a front seat. One night he commented, "We're so unaware of the ways we injure ourselves. Could you please make one of them clear to us?" See self-contradictions. Be aware of how one part of you is opposed by another part. This means you are at war with yourself. Guess who gets wounded? "I know we must think for ourselves," Fred went on, "but I'll ask anyway. What is an example of self-contradiction and how can we work on it?" The next time you state your motive for doing something, remember the motive you gave. Then look deeply into yourself until seeing the real motive. The class laughed. Fred nodded and remarked, "All this seems terribly important to understand." You have no idea how important. Self-images. In a group meeting in Ohio, the topic turned to self-images. Morton commented, "From what you have said in past lectures, we must put an end to all kinds of self-images. This includes, you said, both images of weakness and those in which we see ourselves as strong and confident. Why must self-images go?" Because an image is nothing but an image. You are no more your images than you are a photograph of yourself. Any attempt to prove an image, such as a self-picture of being authoritative, only sinks you deeper into the marsh of confusion and despair. You also deny yourself entrance into the authentic strength of reality. Nothingness has nothing to contribute. Suppose someone told you to get a drink of water from a desert mirage. You would wonder what was wrong with him. Understand? Suppose we drop our self-imaginations. What takes their place? Why don't you find out? Self-newness. A clear and beautiful stream ran through the centre of a small village. It gave great pleasure to the citizens to just sit quietly and watch its casual flow. But through carelessness, junk was allowed to fall into the stream, spoiling its purity. The aroused citizens took action. When foreign objects were banned from the stream, it returned to its original purity. We purify ourselves by not renewing our negative nature each day. Read that sentence again. We purify ourselves by not renewing our negative nature each day. That is enough. That is right action. Self-newness appears by itself as we cease to toss foreign objects into the mental stream. One person must end bitterness, while another must no longer feel cheated, but all can return to the original purity of his flowing mind. Self-noticing. Just as the wings of birds have no meaning to a rabbit, unseen facts have no reality to a man. So the great question is, how do you get him to see what he cannot see? Teach him the art of self-noticing. Impress upon yourself the necessity and the wisdom of constant self-noticing. This watchfulness is not the same as worriedly thinking about yourself. Esoteric self-noticing consists of standing aside as a passive observer of whatever you do and feel. Just alertly notice whatever is there. For instance, you might notice the failure of your efforts to find real and lasting satisfaction, or you notice how a thrill is always followed by a depression. That is excellent self-action. It loosens the chains which bind an individual to dissatisfaction and depression. Facts are attracting freedom. Self-spontaneity. A boy was standing with his father on the bank of a sparkling stream. Being too young to understand natural power, the boy asked, "What keeps the river flowing past us?" Answered the father, "It comes from a higher place than here." Remember, the real solution to any problem resides in a higher place than the problem. The mental level which creates a difficulty cannot cure it. We must look higher than our present level. To discover self-spontaneity is one of the great discoveries of life. Spontaneity frees us of so much which is burdensome and compulsive in society. By first wishing to become a true person within, we put an end to the compulsive tasks which make days so dreadful to most people. Free from a false sense of social duties, we are also free of its accompanying tensions and false guilts. In this newness, we are true contributors to society, first by not adding to the confusion, and next by giving truth to those who want it. Discover self-spontaneity. Self-victory. It is possible for anyone to command his own mind. We do not permit strangers to enter our home and destroy valuable possessions. So why permit negative thoughts to roam destructively around our minds? You are no more required to submit to treacherous thoughts than you are required to submit to deceitful people. But you must learn to recognize treachery when it masquerades as sincerity. You can find all the weapons necessary for commanding your own mind, such as right intentions and a wish to end mental storms. Conquer yourself, for then all haunting questions regarding the conquest of life will be answered. Then, never again will you need to anxiously pursue anything at all. Self-victory is total victory. Shocking experiences. Before asking questions, Douglas spoke of his efforts to make a new life for himself. Everything had failed, he said, leaving him discouraged and bewildered. "As my first question," he said, "I would like to know how to respond rightly to a shocking experience." Refuse to be hypnotized by it. Have you ever noticed how a shocking experience hypnotizes the mind by unreeling, maddening mental movies? Work against this. Do so by standing aside and observing the mental movies instead of letting them take you over. There is a part of you which is quite capable of standing apart to calmly study the experience. It is like sitting in your home and watching a violent movie on television. You see what is going on, but do not refer the violence back to yourself. Practice this with both small and large experiences. Someday you will see yourself apart from both interior and exterior shocks. Silent statement. At a certain place along the path, you may have to make a silent statement to relatives and friends. You might declare, "It is possible that my change of attitudes and actions displease you. I do not want to hurt you in any way, but I must begin to live my own life. I can no longer go along with the old and self-punishing ways. If you wish to go with me, we can work together to find the way out. If you do not, then I must go alone. We may continue with our usual relationship in everyday affairs, but inwardly I must take another path. I'm not sure where I'm going, but I know it is the right and necessary course to take." This must not be said in self-dramatics, but because the wish to find the exit to the cave has become the dominating force in one's life. Simple remedy. One cause of anxiety is an attempt to be what you think the other person wants you to be. This causes painful self-splitting. One part of you tries to live up to the other person's expectations, while another part wants to relax and be natural. This anxiety has another anxiety behind it. We try to please other people so that they will not leave us, so that they will remain as companion or friend or sex partner. The simple remedy is to be yourself. There is never a need to ever be what the other person desires you to be. Pass from slavery to freedom by being what you really want to be. You really want to be yourself. In that natural state, there is no anxiety over losing anyone or anything. Sleeping powers. What power does a truly awakened man possess that enables him to help troubled humanity? He sees human beings in an entirely different way than they see themselves. For example, he sees how they label weaknesses as strengths. People are proud of their bad tempers. They feel elated when getting revenge on someone. But an awakened man also knows about sleeping powers in human beings. If they would listen, he could show them how to chase the haunting ghosts out of their minds. So the task of an awakened man is to help us remember and revive the powers of our real nature. Yes, when a man starts on the path, he is like someone trying to remember the words of a favourite song he knew many years ago. Speak from yourself. Speaking from ourselves means to speak from a nature not influenced by past conditioning. Therefore, whoever speaks from himself is someone who has explored and travelled beyond the jungle of society's negative conditioning. Most people are firmly convinced they possess individual expression, but their words and ideas are unconsciously borrowed from the past. Few ever realise this, for a tape recorder does not know it is a tape recorder. A man wishing to make a good impression on others does not speak from himself. He speaks from an acquired need to be accepted or to gain imagined advantages. A person speaking from anxiety does not express his original nature, but merely turns loose a mechanical habit picked up from other anxious people, perhaps his parents. A liberated nature has no such anxiety. Suppose you were in a room containing 5 men who really spoke from themselves. While using their individual modes of expression, all would say the same thing about reality. Why? Because the truth is not contradictory, as are man-made words. Reality is one. Special method. One week, a teacher employed a special method for teaching his disciples the lessons they needed. Everyone who complained of injustice or persecution was told, "Find your illusion." "I give much but get little," sighed one student. "Find your illusion." "Everything is against me," said another pupil. "Find your illusion." That special method can serve us also. It is an illusion that self-satisfaction can be gained by going out and meeting other people. A man may go out with the aim of gaining money or excitement or sex or allies. Even when getting what he wants, he always makes the same blunder. He never sees that he remains exactly the same person he was before, the same nervous and irritable slave to compulsive cravings. He must see that only a change of nature, a real change, can alter the way he acts and feels and responds. Stone statue. During one class session, the tragic human condition came up for discussion. "The liberating truth is certainly available," said a student to the teacher, "but when will men receive it?" The teacher replied, "In the city park there is a stone statue of a famous military hero. When it responds to the truth, so will the masses of men respond. See the similarities in man's condition and the statue? Both are hardened. Both maintain a fixed position, unable to see anything outside their narrow view. Neither possesses cosmic hearing. For something good to happen, the stone statue must be removed and replaced with a real human being. A real man is not fixed. He can go places. Strange fact. You have said we do not think deeply enough to see the startling significance of certain ideas. Please give us one such idea. Whoever blames another person for his troubles is making a terrible confession. He admits he does not think for himself. Think deeply about that. Our quest for happiness runs into so many puzzling choices. Make up your mind to command yourself, and you will never have to make up your mind regarding happiness. A free mind rests in contentment above baffling choices. When walking along the esoteric path, I sometimes feel that I don't know where I'm going. Congratulations! You must not know where you are going. If you can describe the distant scenery, how can it be the new and different land you seek? As strange as it sounds, the more you walk in darkness, the faster you walk towards sunlight. Strengthening principles. When refusing to run away from happy feelings, you force them by psychological law to run away from you. There are possibilities for the person who can state an opinion and not think the statement creates the fact. The right reaction to the unknown is to experience it, not fear it. By enduring rejection to the very end, the very idea of rejection disappears from both your vocabulary and your day. The difference between living from the part of your mind called memory and living from the whole mind is the difference between night and day. It is only by doing something truly different that we attain something truly different. Avoid complacency by returning regularly to basic truths with a wish to see their deeper meanings. Strength through understanding. Eugene, a member of a class in Texas, stood up one evening. I would like to tell about an inspiring experience I had recently, he said. It may help others. When first coming to the group, I sensed that the teacher saw through me. Since no man wants his follies out in the open, it made me nervous. This went on until an encouraging thought struck me. I realized that his very power of insight was power for authentic assistance. Only a person who understands another can help him. Eugene concluded, "It is astonishing how beginners refuse the very food that could end their hunger. What I first feared became my source of real confidence." Stop fighting. Troubled human beings have everything exactly backward. They think that by winning they can stop fighting. The opposite is true. By ceasing to fight, you win. But what you win is superior and different from what was imagined. A man believes he can end the terrible inner battle by winning wealth or power or endless sexual experiences. If winning them, he is dismayed to find that the battle is not over. He must continue the weary fight. His despair is overwhelming, for his dream has turned into a nightmare of compulsive craving. Stop fighting and you win. Stop fighting and you end the illusion that you must win. You have already won, but you do not understand what this means. Find out. Strong medicine. Over the years, a certain teacher had studied the thousands of people who had attended his classes for the first time. Having the X-ray mind of an awakened man, he saw through human nature. He was not deceived by the impulsive enthusiasms displayed by people after hearing the first lecture. He knew that most of them would fall away after falling once more under the hypnotic influence of their own conditioned minds. Consequently, under certain conditions, his first talk to new people consisted only of these words. Today, I wish you to understand just one thing. In tomorrow's lecture, you will be told many things you will not want to hear. Your habitual nature will rebel against and even silently attack many ideas given you. But to be helped, you must give strong medicine. So keep that in mind, then know you are welcome to come again tomorrow if you wish. Stubborn man. A stubborn man told a friend, "No one is going to tell me what to do. I want my own way." "There is something you should hear," began the friend, but the stubborn man did not hear it. He had already rushed into the world to get his own way. A few weeks later, the bruised and depressed stubborn man staggered back to his friend. He complained, "I've had nothing but fights and defeats. Why didn't you tell me it would be like this?" Asked the friend, "Would you have listened?" Ignoring the question, the stubborn man slid his chair closer and confided, "Here is what I want. I want my own way, but do not want to pay the consequences for it. You are my friend. Show me how." "What you ask is impossible. Definite cosmic laws cover this. The man who tosses a handful of dust will get it back in his own face." Rising, the stubborn man spoke sarcastically. "I ask for advice and you give me philosophy. Goodbye. I'll find someone who really knows the answer." Submission is unnecessary. The trouble is, a man submits. Unconscious submission is his way of life. He bows sullenly before circumstances instead of conquering them by understanding his right relationship to them. He is not opposed by any circumstance because he does not exist as an individual ego. Therefore, there can be nothing opposed to that false self. Where there is no one to fight an enemy, there can be no enemy. Remember, to not submit does not mean to worriedly fight a circumstance. The very fighting is what gives the condition the illusion of having power over you. Fighting keeps the illusion alive, just as a bouncing ball seems to give the ball power of its own. No bouncer, no bouncing. The correct alternative to submission is to see life as it is, not as it appears to be. Study this section with care, then submit no longer. See submission as completely unnecessary. Successes. I want to succeed inwardly, but don't know how. Certain facts are possessed by everyone, including you. Stick with those facts. Think about them at every opportunity. Even a bit of understanding is a cosmic magnet which attracts more understanding. I do have one fact about my present ways. I see how wrong and useless they are. That is a marvellous fact. Be glad you have it. It is one kind of success. Try to realise it even more deeply. Do not spare yourself. What other kind of successes will be attracted? Just as certain as sunrise, you will someday feel the difference between an excitement aroused by an exterior event and the unique thrill of truth sensing. This indicates you are no longer depending upon favourable exterior events to provide a feeling of self-importance. In turn, this indicates you are no longer a slave to exterior happenings. Success in the invisible world has placed the visible world under your command. Sunshine and shadow. A student of esoteric wisdom was seated outdoors, reading an interesting and informative book. He looked up to see that the shadow of a tall tree was advancing towards him. He returned to his reading until noticing that the shadow had reached his foot. He glanced up once more when the shadow had reached his waist. He then became clearly aware of the shadow as it covered the page he was reading. Wishing for more light on the page, he moved his chair, placing himself completely in sunshine once more. As he sat there, he reflected. This is just what this book teaches. While there are shadows in the world, they need not cover me. I can change my position and remain in sunlight. All it takes is wise action. I will search out the nature of this wise action. Supreme life. Quite definitely, supreme life exists within everyone. It can be called God, the inner kingdom, cosmic energy, or anything else, for words are not important. What is important is to not try to imagine the nature of this superior force. Imagination is a wall preventing direct contact with this natural possession. Imagination is but one small part of our psychic system, so it must not be permitted to speak for the whole person. Also, imagination can only repeat the same old things, for it gets its information from memory, and memory is fixed in the past. Anyone living in the past can never know the freshness of the here and now. So detect how imagination tries to dominate the mind, how it brazenly pretends to know what it does not really know. Then refuse to let it repeat the same old tiring preachings. Do not let it speak for the whole person. Daily practice here breaks down the wall between the individual and supreme life. The person then is supreme life. Surprising discovery. Asked Arnold, how can we tell whether a teaching offered to us rings true or not? There is only one way. There must be at least a small part within you that rings true. This part knows instantly whether a teaching is true or false. Awaken this total intelligence. Someday you may be surprised to discover that one small part of you was right after all. How can we awaken this new intelligence? Do not live like most people. Most human beings want to blame others for their troubles. Assume complete responsibility for what happens to you until you understand the law of cause and effect. An awakened person never causes trouble for himself. Switch to self-insight. Imagine yourself seated in a cold and uncomfortable room. Wanting to warm yourself, you absently reach for an electric switch and turn it on. But now you feel colder than before, for you accidentally turned on the switch to a fan instead of the heater. Correcting your mistake, you are soon warm and comfortable. Your shocks in human encounters are similar to electric shocks of current. Switch them on rightly and you feel right. Turn the wrong switch and you feel uncomfortable. Remember that a basic rule of esotericism is that all events, including human events, can be switched to self-gain. This self-gain consists of fresh insight which shows you a superior way. T. Take it personally. A salesman was walking through a busy public park on his way to a customer. He heard someone shout, but was too absorbed in financial figures to pay much attention. All of a sudden, his feet went up and the rest of him went down. He found himself sprawled out in a newly dug ditch. Unhurt but embarrassed, he looked up to see the foreman of a construction company. "I tried to warn you," said the foreman, "but you were miles away." The salesman stood up with a grin and a nod. "I didn't realise you were talking to me. I should have taken it personally." Take esoteric messages personally. They are for you as an individual human being. The human mind operates strangely. A man insists upon personal attention, personal guidance, personal enrichment, but rarely takes the helpful messages personally. The man who falls into psychic ditches is the man who must heed the friendly voice and so avoid future falls. Taste the truth. A teacher was seated outdoors with his disciples. He wished them to see the need for personal experience with the truth. Holding up a freshly baked cake, he asked a disciple, "What does this cake taste like?" I do not know, sir. I have not tasted it. Said the teacher to a second disciple, Taste this cake and describe its taste to us. When this was done, the teacher spoke again to the first disciple. Can you now describe the cake to us? No, sir. Why not? Because a description of the taste is not the taste itself. Very good. You may now taste the cake for yourself. Teaching other people. Robert stood up in a class in Florida. He said, One of the first rules of esotericism is to speak about these ideas only to those who show genuine interest. Suppose we meet a sincere individual. How might we best help him? By remembering your own early encounters with esoteric truths. Remember how timid and uncertain you were? Remember your resistance to these facts, how you felt threatened by them. Well, put yourself in the other person's place. He feels the same way. He is still in the stage where he feels truth is trying to take something valuable from him. What truth really wants to take is his misery. Robert replied with a nod. That is exactly right. I was worried and suspicious over what might happen to me. I was about as receptive as a tree. A certain comment of yours helped me. You said that the man who takes it is the man who makes it. Technique for freedom. Here is a good technique for daily use. Whenever meeting a new idea, ask yourself, what does this mean? Ask that direct question and then seek the answer. Search with a combination of your own intelligence and esoteric guidance. That is a winning combination. Suppose you read, The only freedom needed is freedom from yourself. Diligently inquire, what does this mean? Now relax. Do not be afraid to relax completely in the face of this tremendous truth, but let it be a dynamic kind of quietness in which you listen alertly to your original nature, which can explain everything perfectly. This kind of quiet alertness can be practiced in the middle of a noisy business office or at home. It allows answers to emerge, like a prisoner of war escaping the enemy camp. Ask, what does this mean? Then you will know from yourself that the only freedom needed is freedom from yourself. Thawing. There are certain words which excellently describe the psychological process we must experience. The word thawing is one of them. Like ice, man is cold and hardened. Even while suffering terribly from his condition, he refuses reality's invitation to come out into the psychological sunshine, which could thaw him out. All attempts of truth to melt down his assorted fantasies about himself and his role on earth are stubbornly resisted. His difficulty is an incorrect assumption about his nature. Fearful of vanishing in the sunlight, he crouches in dark despair in his psychological cave. But will he disappear? He has not heard the good news. There is no one there to disappear. There was no one there in the first place. They were only self-labels of an incredible variety. So he has nothing to lose but his hardened labels. Even a small realization of this good news arouses courage for hiking out of the cave. When thawing in sunshine, he will smile at his former fears of being nobody. He has not disappeared. Like ice melting into water, he has become someone different. Third way of thinking. I don't know where I should stand in life, an inquirer told a teacher. Should I stand on this side or that side of a political question? Should I stand here or over there when it comes to standards of morality? I'm uncertain and nervous. You are anxious because you still think that one side of a social question is right and the other side wrong. Both sides are wrong. Division is wrongness. Never forget that. At present, you view social questions from a mind which wants to feel secure by joining a group of believers or its opposite group. It is this craving for so-called psychological security which forces you to take a side. But have you noticed that insecurity continues? Ever noticed how scared and nervous your allies are? That is because society is always wrong. Concluded the teacher, this is unclear to you because you have not as yet entered the third way of thinking, which is above society's ideas. Only in this third way of thinking is there true conscience and decency. Thoughts about thinking. I don't know how to handle tough daily challenges from the exterior world. Let exterior impressions pass through the purification of a clear mind, just as a filter purifies water. My mind seems so limited. You are limited only by unawareness of how you have limited yourself. My thinking needs guidance in distinguishing between right and wrong. Do not mistake attractiveness for rightness. It is difficult to understand what life is all about. Understanding comes by exploring and explaining yourself to yourself. My faltering mind needs constant encouragement. The absolute fascination of uncovering the mysteries of your mind is a mountain of encouragement. I think it time I made an earnest effort to find myself. Now you're thinking. 3 steps. We can think rightly or we can think wrongly towards a difficult situation. Here are 3 right steps to give yourself. The difficulty exists because there is something I do not understand about myself and about life in general. With self-investigation, it is possible for me to gain this needed understanding. When I finally see things as they are in reality, the difficulty will cease to exist. Do not wander away from this simple plan. Apply it day and night. Perhaps you have a strained human relationship. Recall how minds operate on the level of illusion. They crash like recklessly driven cars. But on the cosmic level, they blend like clouds entering each other. Do not try to change the other person. All you need to dissolve the difficulty is to have a cosmic mind of your own, for it knows no problems at all. Topics for daily action. Give one of the following topics your creative attention for a full day. The richness of inner maturity. The wisdom of using energies constructively. The folly of self-deception. The desirability of reaching the other shore. The need of attaining newness of mind. The attractiveness of whatever is honest. The courage of refusing society's propaganda. The genuine pleasure of inner exploration. The power of trueness to one's original nature. The refreshment of living simply and naturally. Total power. The only freedom needed is freedom from a wrongly operating mind, but it must be glimpsed that this is the only liberty needed, for that starts the liberating process. People want to know, suppose I do study and apply these teachings to my inner life, will it change how I act and also affect what happens to me in daily actions? The answer is, of course it will influence daily ways, all for the good. When a clay bowl is dipped into silver colouring, both its inside and outside become silver. When attributing power to truth, never make exceptions, not a single one. Many people do this without realising it. God, truth, reality, each has total power. Alcoholism, problems related to sex, family difficulties, unwanted habits, all fall away from the individual who abandons his old and conditioned nature to live within the new. Truth is like the sky. People may seldom look up, but the sky still covers everything. Total success. In last week's lecture, said Edwin, you mentioned something that has haunted my mind ever since. You said that people rarely see their need to succeed as human beings. Will you please expand that idea? It is difficult for a man to see that he can succeed as a businessman or husband or friend and still fail as a whole human being. His mind excludes whatever he does not want to see in favour of the pleasing. It is like picking one sweet grape out of a sour bunch and claiming that the whole cluster is sweet. To succeed as a whole human being means to clear heart and mind of all unconscious negativities. And this success is the same as authentic happiness. Succeed in becoming a whole human being. No other success is necessary for lasting happiness. Travel beyond. Why do we fail to enjoy life? Life can be enjoyed only when you do not try to possess it, like a rainbow. Possessiveness is an attempt to build security, but the exact opposite results. Travel beyond the urge to cling to people and objects and see what is on the other side. Recently, a group of people tried to force their beliefs on me. This reckless zeal is characteristic of pressure groups. What is behind it? Insecure people always try to convert and involve others. It is their desperate and futile attempt to convince themselves of the rightness of their beliefs. The man who really knows where he stands is able to stand alone. What do we need? You need what is essential. If not having it, do not try to cover up the emptiness by calling the non-essential the essential. An empty jar labelled peaches is still an empty jar. Call it an empty jar and go out for peaches. Troubled thoughts. It is not necessary for anyone to remain with troubled thoughts. They can be pushed away the moment they try to invade. This comes by understanding the mind. It is first needful to be aware that we are under the tyranny of undesirable thoughts, which is accomplished through alert watchfulness of the mind. Just notice the mental state you are in. We can next realise the strangely hypnotic fascination of negative thoughts, then refuse the punishing fascination. We can then deliberately interrupt the flow of mechanical and unwanted thoughts to let them be replaced by consciousness of where we are. Just notice where you are and be aware of what you are doing. Whenever you feel unhappy about anything at all, remember and practice these techniques. You will see unhappiness fade away. True and false. A young artist visited the home of an older man who had been an art expert for many years. When falling into a discussion about forged paintings, the expert invited, "Come into the next room, you can test yourself." In the next room, the expert explained, "Here you see dozens of pictures. Some are authentic works of great artists, while others are forgeries. See whether you can tell the difference." In spite of a careful study of the paintings, the young artist mistakenly pronounced several of the forgeries as genuine. "There is a way to tell the difference," declared the expert, "such as knowing the ways of a true artist so well that you could never mistake them. Listen carefully and I will show you how to distinguish the true from the false. We must be willing to learn the difference between self-healing and self-harming ideas. Then our own true nature will reveal the difference." True and false security. There is authentic security and there is illusory security. The false is easily seen because it can be felt as nervousness and apprehension. If we feel insecure, we are insecure and no amount of covering it over will change anything. Insecurity exists because we wrongly believe we must attain something. Careless thinking declares we must become wealthy or powerful or prominent. Oddly, we seek these goals in an attempt to feel secure, never seeing how the very attempt creates insecurity. How seldom do people pause in their mad scramble to notice this? Seeking worldly prizes divides you from your real nature. Alienation from your real nature arouses feelings of being in danger. Self-reunion ends insecurity. It is no more complicated than that. Salt does not spoil because it is its own preservative. Likewise, you become your own protector by living within these principles. True good. People say they want to know what is truly good for them. It is good to remember the existence within you of something which can never be discouraged or afraid. It is good to say, I want to know where I am making a fundamental mistake in living my life. It is good to see that a right person will not attract wrong circumstances to himself. It is good to realise that the only valuable rebellion is the rebellion against our own false values. It is good to know that an inner miracle can happen when our silent receptivity permits it to happen. It is good to hear, instead of trying to do something, try to see something. Trust your ability. A woodcutter in early America hung a bell outside his cabin. Shaken by frequent winds, the bell warned the woodcutter against wandering too far into the perilous forest. One day, while searching for a particular kind of tree, he carelessly wandered beyond the bell's range. He was lost for 3 days before finding his way back home. That is also the story of careless mankind. He forgets, he wanders, he suffers, but he can come back. Our homeward path is to no longer attribute power where there is no power. As a specific example, do not attribute power to the future. It has no power. Do not believe you will be happier tomorrow. Do not trust next year to deliver pleasanter conditions. Trust only your considerable ability to change what you are at this very moment. That is right understanding and right use of power. Truth's invitation. Truth does not say an individual must approach without his angers and frustrations. If a man is bound by these chains, he has no choice but to come with them. Asking a prisoner to behave like a free man is both impossible and hypocritical. Truth says this to the chained man or woman. Come with your very angers and frustrations, but add something else. Add a simple and earnest wish to drop your chains. This wish itself is a new power. By permitting it to enter the action, you permit it to become the key to liberation. No man who asked insincerely ever received an answer. No man who asked sincerely was ever denied an answer. Truth always knows which of the two attitudes is asking. Inspiration is the beautiful explosion of understanding that occurs when a truth meets a willingness to receive that truth. Turn homewards. Our aim is to live in the here and now. The ditch between us and this aim is wandering thought. So we must cease our mental meandering and come back home, as did the prodigal son. Turn homewards by thinking of a small action you will be performing in a few minutes from now. You may be picking up a pencil or entering another room. State your aim. The moment I pick up that pencil, I will be aware of myself doing just that. See whether you do. Most people are surprised at how easily they forget such a simple task of remembering themselves in the here and now. But surprise and dismay are beams of light. They destroy the great illusion from which men suffer, the illusion that they are conscious human beings who know what they are doing. So success or failure with the pencil is not the important point. Awareness of unawareness is what we want. That in itself builds a human being who knows what he is doing and who therefore always does good to himself and others. Turning points. One fascinating feature of the path is to see yourself change before your own eyes. These turning points arrive all by themselves as you do what must be done. Their principal ingredient is a new insight. Here are examples. Realizing that the struggle to win over other people is both exhausting and vain, you turn to self-conquest. You become more conscious of having a scattered self, which increases the urge for self-unification. Knowing that most people are too confused in themselves to offer authentic help, you abandon worthless sources of guidance. More and more, you realise that your environment is not outward, but inward, so that is where you go into action. You see difficulties as opportunities for self-transformation instead of as enemies.